So we are right in the beginning of the super exciting sown and grown winter adventure. So I thought today, as part of that whole getting into it, knowing what's going on, getting stuff going, I'm going to take you through my plans for where things are going to go in the garden and why, and how that's going to let us have some of our usual fabby experiments. So you guys are well used to the garden by now. It is basically an area with 3 beds for veg. I've got this big planter at the side of the shed that is still a bit, we're not sure. The greenhouse where I get seedlings going so they can get, basically a boost and a bump and get them going really fast. And in summer it's where I grow my peppers and tomatoes. So obviously no peppers and tomatoes at the minute, but it does give me 3 environments that I'm going to be growing in, just so we can have some fun, and I'll bring you guys along. So if we start off with the most obvious thing, I've got these 3 big raised beds for veggies. Now, you're used to seeing the nets on them. There's different types of nets. These are nets to keep pests off. So the super fine EnviroMesh stuff, which keeps the majority of flying pests off, helps with things like carrot fly, aphids, all of that. But obviously, your pollinators can't get through this. The bed on the end is a much more coarse netting, so it stops birds getting to the crops, it stops the local cats who use pretty much our beds and everything as a toilet, stops them getting in there, but it does let the pollinators in, so I can put things like courgettes and stuff there. And obviously that mesh, because it's fine, offers a degree of protection against the wind and wind chill and stuff as well. Also, you're not going to see it for a couple of weeks yet, but I'm going to take you through it. What I can do, because I've got these hoops, is in winter I can put polythene over this and I can create a little polytunnel, if you like, just a little bit of extra protection. So that means then I'm going to be growing things like my mustards, my dragon's tongue and my green wave, my broccoletto quarantino riccio, which is basically a broccoli rab, land cress, and my lamb's lettuce as well is going to stay out here because it's going strong, and I'm not, I'm just going to keep it out here and see how we go because it's meant to be fully hardy. But I'm in a bit of 2 minds because I've had real issues with something munching things like my lettuce leaves. My pak choi got hammered, so I'm really wary of putting things like my pak choi and my tatsoi in the beds just now. It's going to be either slugs, snails, or I'm thinking sometimes maybe even flea beetles, although to be fair I've never actually seen any. So we'll see, I may get brave, but I don't think I'm going to put those things in the beds. But as you can see, 1 empty veg trug. This had the strawberries in it. As you can see, it's called a veg trug. It's basically a huge big planter, and this is a particular type of it, but it's got a really deep section at the back, up to about 4 inches worth at the front. The idea being that if you have a really small garden and you can only grow in containers, this is an awesome thing for growing all your veggies. Now, we had strawberries in this. This was a trial we did last year because we wanted to move the strawberries out the beds to give us more growing space. And we were really, really lucky. Quickcrop.co.uk gave us this so that we could give it a trial and see what we thought. And I have to say, I said last year the strawberries just I'm not going to say massive disaster, but we pretty much didn't get any strawberries. The plants were super healthy, just not much in the way of fruit, because this area doesn't get nearly enough sunlight for fruiting plants. So we had this whole discussion with the tomatoes, how I can't grow them in this bit of the garden. It's the same with the strawberries. So as you can see, strawberries are gone from here. I've put them in the first veg bed, so they are back in a bed, back in the light. But in terms of those whole experiments, this doesn't get as much light as over there. And given that it's winter, and I said light was an issue in winter because we get much less of it, I'm going to try growing some bits and bobs in here as well, and that gives us a wee experiment to see how the light affects the crops in here. So I can get away with growing quite a lot in here, so I think I'm probably going to do the pak choi and the tatsoi in here, because I did notice There wasn't as many pests here. There wasn't as much problem with slugs and snails and things. So I'm going to give this a try and hope that that helps. Probably a few other things I'm going to grow in there as well. So that's the veg beds and the VegTrug. My third space, as you guys know, is the greenhouse. But I want to tell you a bit about that because I think there's been some misunderstanding. Okay, greenhouse then. I am incredibly lucky that I have this awesome greenhouse that I can grow in. But I just want to explain a few things about how I use the greenhouse. Now, I have the option if I want to start seeds off early. Say my peppers and tomatoes and aubergines, I get them going kind of July, February time. Obviously, it's far too cold to be sowing seeds, well, correction, it's far too cold to be sowing those seeds out in the garden at that time of year. But what I can do is I've got power in here, so I can use a heated propagator and lights, and I can get those things going in here. Okay, now, this is what's probably caused the confusion. I don't heat my greenhouse over winter. Let's be honest, it would just be ridiculously expensive, because as much as I could heat it, as quickly as I could heat it, the heat would be going out. It would be losing that because it's not insulated in any way. So it just would be crazy to heat it. It would bankrupt us, basically. What I do though is if I've started off my tomatoes, my peppers, my aubergines and what have you early, they will get to a point quite quickly where they're far too big for even my massive heated propagator. So then I have to have them out in the greenhouse and then I heat the greenhouse. But I don't heat it over winter, okay? What I may do is look at some options for trying to help keep the frost off, but we will get into that nearer the time. Because obviously, at the moment, it's not quite frosty yet. But anyways, so how I do this is I use my greenhouse to give all my little seedlings a boost, okay? So I sow in here because sunny days like today, it is warmer in here because the sun is heating up the greenhouse. That means the compost and things that are in here are warmer, which means seeds are more likely to germinate and they'll germinate faster in here. Them and its little seedlings, they'll come on faster because it's slightly warmer in here during the day and they're protected from things like the wind chill. My intention though is that I'm bringing them on, but I'm going to do that mix as I've just spoken about. I'm going to have plants that will be grown in here over winter and they'll be protected from the wind chill. They'll have a degree of frost protection. But I'm also going to be taking these plants and planting them out in the garden. The greenhouse doing its job and get them going strong and fast so that I can get them out as healthy, strong little plants rather than direct sown and having to go through that slow process out there. So that's what I'm doing with the greenhouse. I will be growing plants in the greenhouse, I'll be growing plants out in the veg beds, and I'll be growing plants in the trug. Lots of backup plans here because I will lose plants. Let's just be honest about this. I'm going to lose plants because the weather will be sucky and some of the plants just won't manage. I will lose plants to pests. I'm going to tell you right now, I will carry on swearing and cursing slugs and snails right through winter. It's going to happen. Also, if I'm growing in the greenhouse, I guarantee I'm going to see lots of aphids because there's going to be a lovely, slightly warmer place for them that's going to have lots of food in it. So they're all going to come in here. So there's all of these things to think about, which is why you never just grow just enough. Backups are a great thing. So I'm going to get started today by moving some things out and get them in the trug. I've already done a heap of work yesterday and I'm a tad on the stiff side, I have to confess. What we have here then is my Marvel lettuce. These are my winter lettuce. I'm going to put some of them in this trug. I've got some green pak choi here. I'm also going to get the red pak choi, but I just couldn't carry everything. And some of my broccoli rab, my Broccoletto Quarantino Riccio. I'm going to put some of this in here. Some of it in the greenhouse. Hedging our bets here, so I'm going to get this planted out now. Just a wee word of warning, if this is your first year using greenhouses, polytunnels, what have you, remember, you need to harden plants off before you bring them from a greenhouse to the outdoors, or you risk them getting severely shocked and possibly dying. Just a warning. So, Marvel lettuce. I'm going to put bigger plants at the back, smaller plants at the front. Obviously, in terms of light, that makes sense, but also this is one of the wall hugger trug designs, so the back is much deeper than the front. To be honest, I think it's a really crazy design because it's not like having it deeper at, in fact, it's not like having it level deepness all the way around is going to take up any extra space, so I'm not sure what the idea behind it is. But let's see, I will put half out and we'll see how we go. So, I said earlier that we've already done quite a bit of the work. We spent yesterday emptying the strawberries out of this trug and putting them in the end bed. Before I did that, I revitalised that first bed, so I had heaps of compost from my compost bin and gave that front bed a good refresh because it needed more organic matter and more nutrients in there, because it's had a hard season already and I want to give those wee strawberries the best start they can get. The same here, once I moved the strawberries on, I had to top this up with lots of fresh compost from a compost bin, and I've added a little tiny bit of fish blood and bone, just again to give this a general all-purpose boost nutrients wise. Got some lettuce in. Next thing I'm going to put in is the pak choy. And as you can see, I've only gone to here. I'm not going to fill it right at the moment. Let's see how it goes. Little tender seedlings. Let's see if this does work with the slugs and snails. But some green pak choy. And some of the broccoli rab, broccoletti, at the back. So there we go. Obviously I've still got to get some red pak choy out. I'll put it at this side, and this gives us something to keep an eye on. Over the next couple of weeks we can keep an eye, see how it goes, compare it to what's going on in the greenhouse, and then also, in the spirit of testing things out and showing you guys what you can be doing, come the end of this month, when it starts to get a bit chilly and frosty, we'll look at putting the polythene on the raised beds, and I'll show you how to do that. And I might even shove the big poly cover on this as well, just to help keep it going. But that's it for just now, and I will see you guys next time. See you, folks.